Welcome to the Fitness Business Podcast with your host, Justin Tamzett. With over 30 years in the fitness industry, JT is a globally recognised authority with a mission to lower healthcare costs worldwide by getting more people moving and moving more often in quality facilities with qualified professionals. Every episode, JT digs deep with our guests to bring you insights that will help you lead, innovate, and boost your bottom line. So let's dive in. Take it away, JT.
Here are 4 positive data points you've just got to know about podcasting. Number 1, massive audience growth. As of 2024, there are over 500 million podcast listeners worldwide, with that number expected to exceed 800 million by 2028. Number 2 is there is engagement and loyalty. Over 80% of podcast listeners tune in to most, if not all, of every episode. Number 3, experts. You see, consistent podcasting can foster community, increase member retention, and position your gym as a thought leader in the fitness space and in your own community. And finally, number 4, niche marketing power. There are over 5 million podcasts across various genres, allowing gym owners to tap into niche markets. So whether you're focused on weight loss, strength training, mindfulness, there's a podcasting audience out there for you. Now, the negative data point is pod fading. This is where less than 10 episodes are actually ever completed. The podcaster's initial enthusiasm fades and there's no new content. You see, it's not as easy as you think to produce a podcast that represents your brand professionally. If you treat podcasting like you would any other marketing effort, you'll start to see the fruits of your effort early on, which then adds to your motivation to deliver fresh content to your listeners. Today, we've an expert to share using podcasting to turn members of your community into prospects and then into members. Our guest, Jamie Kennedy from Brave Moon Podcast, will explain this and so much more to ensure that podcasting should be part of your marketing mix. By the way, Jamie is the producer of this podcast. She's come on this year to help us, and she's been doing awesome work. And when you hear her talk, you'll realize why she's so good at what she does. I guarantee you're going to learn about podcasting and how it can play a role in your marketing. In this episode, we launch a brand new segment, which I know you're just going to love. And I'm going to tell you all about it straight after this week's wise words from our expert, Dr. Paul Bedford, the Retention Guru.
Hi, I'm Dr. Paul Bedford from Retention Guru, and for the past 30 years, I've worked in the fitness industry. For 20 of those years, I've focused on member retention. How do you keep people exercising in your clubs, and how do you get them to pay consistently month on month on month? In that time, we've looked at over 6.5 million member records from 5,500 clubs in 31 different countries. And we've been able to look at the characteristics of the most important factors that increase member lifetime value. The number 1 factor is visit frequency, because if members aren't visiting, they don't value the product, they start to quit, attrition goes up. All that time, effort you put into building your business, training your staff, working to get the certifications that you require have no impact at all. Now, the visit frequency you're looking for is at least 1 visit per week. Now, I know as a qualified trainer that you do not get the physiological changes you require from 1 visit per week, but it is sufficient to build a behavior. It is sufficient to build a habit. And you can build from that into more visit frequencies. So you're looking for at least 1 visit per week or 4 visits per month. So my task or activity for you would be to go into your club management system and look at how many of your members are currently not visiting that frequently. Identify them, and then working backwards from those who visited most recently, invite them to come back in. So if they've not been in for 2 weeks, get in touch with them, either via email. My preference would be to call them or message them. then go back 3 weeks, then go back 4 weeks. So you're trying to get back the people and save the people who've had the shortest break first. You're not trying to go back to someone who's not been in for 6 years and trying to save them. Now, if you found this useful and you want to find out more about the work that I do, you can look in the Fitness Business Podcast show notes and you'll find my contact details there. I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
I have to say, Paul is an incredibly generous man with his knowledge and his time. If you want to profoundly impact your retention, then I cannot recommend highly enough chatting with Paul. You can grab all his deets at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com under this week's show. After my chat with Jamie, stay tuned as we launch In the Trenches with Arexa. In this 3-minute segment, I've asked a member of Rex Roundtables to share a strategy that is working for them. The Rexer is an owner or a general manager or a group fitness manager, sales manager, or a PT manager who is just like you. They're working in the business or in the trenches with their staff and their members every single day. And today, we welcome Troy Morgan, who is going to drop some ripper tech strategies for you. So let's rip in now with Jamie. All right, Jamie, tell everyone why you're our expert today.
I am a podcast producer. I own a business called Brave Boom Podcasts, and we help health and fitness businesses build better podcasts.
That sounds like a pretty good reason to be today. Now, how do we use podcasting to turn members of a community into prospects and then into members or clients?
Podcasting is a great opportunity for turning your community into paying clients. And the reason why is because podcasting is an amazing way to tell stories. Storytelling is an incredible way to sell your offering, your product, your service. Within that is the idea that there's 2 stories that are happening. The first story is your user experience. So those are the stories that are happening within the 4 walls of your gym, your studio. Those are the things where you're already doing that as a business owner. You're creating the best possible offering service that you can supply. So those stories that you're hearing within the gym is going to be stories like, I had the best personal training session. She helped me hit a PR. That's the type of user experience stories that we want to be telling inside those 4 walls, which is ultimately going to be converting your potential members, turning them into members. Then there's the other type of story, and this is your brand's story. So this is things like your origin story. So why did you decide to create the business that you created? What problem were you trying to solve within your community? And then you also have your underdog stories. So what are the struggles and the hurdles that your business had to overcome in order to become the brand that you are today, or maybe still are facing? Everybody loves a good underdog story. With the second story that you're creating, which is outside of the 4 walls, you need to find a place in which to make that happen. So a podcast is an incredible way to make that happen, because what you're doing is you're creating a space where, as average listening attention spans are closer to 2 minutes or under on things like YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, you have an average of 27 minutes in order to keep a listener's attention on a podcast. You have more time and you have more flexibility in order to tell those complete stories and to help those people get excited about your brand. That is how you can absolutely use storytelling and use podcasting to turn those prospects into members.
Found it interesting there that you started to talk about that story of members who have got results, but also the why you're in the community. And we know that's a really attractive reason for people wanting to come to our business. And I guess with a podcast, as opposed to anything else, you can actually articulate it and people can hear it in your own voice, as opposed to reading it or seeing a picture.
Yeah, definitely.
So the podcasting is a medium for us to be able to tell our story. Now, while you were telling your story then, I was doing a quick Google search because I couldn't remember the name of a really good book, which is Building a Brand Story by Donald Miller. Great book. Talks a lot about marketing your brand story.
One thing to consider is that when you're looking for a book that's in this space about business storytelling is make sure that you're looking for that branded storytelling. So people like Kendra Hall, she has written multiple incredible books about how businesses can tell better stories in order to convert clients, as opposed to the people that are maybe telling you how to create a story in order to write a book or something along those lines.
As always, we'll put links in our show notes and our episode notes on fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. So if you head across there, you'll be able to see links to some of these storytelling books. Do you have any examples of gyms or fitness brands that have really successfully used podcasts to grow their community, to turn these community members into paying members?
One of the best examples is actually a client of mine. So Virgin Active is a gym chain. They're global. They're in 8 different countries. And back in 2019, they really wanted to find a way to differentiate their value proposition, how they were different from every other gym out there. And what they came up with was the idea that they really wanted to start talking about that physical health isn't just about losing weight, all of those things that we naturally think about when we think about a gym, but instead that it was more about mental health and social and spiritual, the 7 dimensions of wellness. So they were trying to figure out the best way to do that. And that's pretty hard inside the gym, right? I mean, not every personal trainer is going to be talking about mindfulness. Not every member is going to be going to their yoga class, even though they do offer it. So they came to me and they asked, what can we do with a podcast? And looked within the business for a host that was already working at Virgin Active. So their head of yoga and Pilates. And what he ended up doing was every single episode, he interviewed a different wellness expert. I mean, this ranged from everyone from, he talked to a neuroscientist, he talked to a gut health doctor, he even talked to a humanist chaplain, which ended up being an incredible episode. But this is how they started to align their brand with all of these different values. We ended up having 67 episodes across 2 seasons, over 30,000 listens. And what I really appreciated about it also was the anecdotal conversations that were happening in the gyms. So a lot of the members were actually coming into the gyms and talking to their instructors and their personal trainers and saying, hey, I listened to that episode about such and such. That was so cool. And it was really driving conversations that were really changing around the brand and the business because of that. And even though season 3 hasn't happened yet, they're still getting listens every single week. So that's what another great thing about a podcast is that you don't have to keep it going forever in order to keep that evergreen marketing happening.
Yes, the old evergreen marketing, Jamie. We've had a little hiatus, as you know, with the Fitness Business Podcast, 8 months or so. And despite all of that, we still had downloads and we still had people listening. So it's kind of crazy. If people are interested in getting like an idea of what that Virgin Active podcast was like, what's the name of it? What would they search?
Yes, check out Virgin Active Minds. And actually, I think that this would be a good opportunity to just share the idea of what you should choose your podcast name to be, because I think a lot of people get a little confused about, do I create a podcast that is my brand's name and that's that? The answer is actually no. And I think this is what differentiates podcasting to all of the other different marketing efforts that you can be making out there. So for instance, with Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, all of these different ones, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be creating an account with your brand's name, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so what that does is you have to first become aware of that brand in order to find them on these platforms. Now, granted, there's obviously search impression opportunities and, different ways of finding them through separate posts and different, maybe engagement has cost virality. All of these things are possible. However, what's great about a podcast is that your job is not to create a podcast that is your brand. Your job is to create a podcast that is helping solve your target audience's biggest struggles. So let's just say we're talking about F45. We may know that F45 stands for functional 45 minutes, but people don't necessarily know that, right? So I'm not going to go onto a podcast listening app like Spotify and type in F45 if I'm not aware of what that brand is. But I might type in functional training, or I might type in working out for longevity, these different things that will relate to F45, for example. And so what you would do is you would probably name it Functional Training by F45. You're getting people to the podcast. And then once you start listening to the episode, that's when you start working your way down the marketing funnel and getting into the consideration phase and talking about what F45, for example, offers as a gym.
I think that's a really big and important point for us, because often in our industry, please be offended, everybody who's listening, we have big egos. And so we name the podcast after our brand or our personal name, Body by Jono. That's not going to be found when people are looking for mindfulness or wellness or HIIT training or strength tips. I think that's a really powerful little nugget you've just shared, Jamie. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's talk about, how does this podcasting thing work at the top of any sort of marketing funnel? What does that look like?
I love that podcasting actually checks off all of the boxes of the marketing funnel. I think that's the coolest thing about it. But let's talk about the awareness piece, because that is actually a huge part of why podcasting works as a marketing effort, to your point. When we're sitting at the top of the awareness funnel, we're thinking about, how are we even getting people to know about our brand? First of all, what's happening is that a podcast is showing up on various listening apps, and these listening apps act as search engines, just like you would Google, just like Instagram, just like Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. These are all search engines in themselves. And turns out that 40% of podcast listeners are actually finding new podcasts directly through the podcast listening apps.
Whoa. 40%? Nearly 1 in 2 listeners are finding the next podcast to listen to through their listening app.
Exactly.
Shit, we need to do a better job on the Fitness Business Podcast.
I think you're doing a great job, but absolutely, there's so many ways that you can be using the searches in order to get more awareness to your podcast. So in addition to that as well, each individual episode acts as its own search, right? Let's go back to the F45 example. So let's say that you're going to do an episode on what to eat before a workout. That's going to create a whole nother level of potential podcast listeners that are going to be searching for that exact topic. So they'll go into the listening app, they'll see this particular episode, they'll click on it and press play, and it's potentially the first episode that they'll hear of your podcast, which then drives them into awareness piece. So that's really how podcasting works on the top of the awareness funnel. And it also works on every other level. And I'm happy to dive into that if that is...
No, I think people are going to contact you for the next levels. But no, seriously, would you just say that the name of the podcast episode shows up on search engines?
Yes. So in search engines, meaning the listening apps.
Oh, so it doesn't show up if I search what to eat before a workout on Google. It would only show up if I type that into a podcast search engine.
Well, actually, the good news is it could potentially show up in both locations. So the way that happens is a little bit more complicated, but it actually doesn't take that much more effort on your part in order for it to show up on Google search engine as well. Your podcast host or podcast hosting platform, what that does is it distributes your podcast out to the different listening apps. What that also can do is it can create a personalized website for you. It will pull all the information about each individual episode, your show notes, and it will actually create that website literally just by the tap of a button. It acts as part of its program. My personal recommendation is that you actually do create a branded website. In a case of a gym or a boutique studio, this already exists. You already have a website. So my recommendation is to create a web page, a destination web page on your existing website that is completely focused on your podcast. That way you can be adding not only information about your podcast to Google for SEO purposes, but you can also be adding all of your episodes. Things like your episode transcripts are really a key thing to be getting that discoverability on Google as well.
So you just mentioned that transcripts. Should we be transcribing the entire interview and putting that on a website, or transcribing bullet points?
I do recommend a direct transcription of the entire podcast. I think it's a great way to drive discoverability and also allow for that accessibility no matter where someone is. But in addition to that, I do recommend bullet points. And the reason why I recommend really establishing what was the episode about is that, one, you can really tackle SEO keywords. What was discussed in the episode that has high search impressions medium to low competitive levels, what you're doing is you're increasing the amount of SEO keywords that you're using for discoverability purposes.
Can you give our FBP community some suggestions on podcasting apps that you recommend?
Yes. Okay. There are a few that I absolutely live by, and all of my clients use them. So in regards to recording, I highly recommend Podcastle or Riverside. Now, whereas it used to be all about Zoom really lacks in terms of features specific to what a podcast needs. When you're recording a podcast, you really want to make sure that you're recording every single individual on a separate audio track. You can actually convert them into social media posting opportunities. And these podcast recording platforms like Podcastle and Riverside make that as easy as it can possibly be, much more than Zoom does. Podcastle and Riverside are actually also incredible because they do actually do a transcription for you. So they use AI in order to transcribe your entire podcast episode. That's so much time and effort taken off of your plate by using the power of AI.
How good's that? AI. We're actually using Podcastle today as our recording platform, and version 1 of the Fitness Business Podcast and version 2 were all done on Zoom, and we have now launched obviously with version 3. And thanks to Jamie, we're now using Podcastle. And for a dummy like me, it's actually pretty easy to use. Check it out. We'll put some links in the episode notes at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com if you're interested in jumping onto Podcastle and checking it out. In fact, that would be great if you did, because we'll probably get some affiliate income from that, which will help pay me for all this hard work I'm doing. Can I ask you 4 quick-fire questions with short answers?
Yes.
Is there an ideal length for a podcast?
The top 3 activities that are happening while podcast listeners are tuning in are, 1, they're either commuting, which the average commute in the US today is 25 minutes long, or they're working out or walking, and that's the average is about 30 minutes long, or third is that they are doing chores around the house, and the average chore amount of time is 1 hour. So I would say anywhere between the 25-minute to 1 hour is going to be the sweet spot. What's even more important than the length is consistency. So if you choose to make it a 30-minute podcast, do your best to keep around that length. You're establishing your episode as something that is part of their routine. So if they know that they can take a walk around the block and finish 1 episode from you, that's what you're going to be going after.
That's great. I am concerned, though, that I need to be doing chores around the house for an hour. Let's hope my wife doesn't listen to this podcast. Okay, where do we host podcasts? We do the recording, but where do we host them?
My favorites that are free. So if you're looking for free options, one is Acast. The other option that's free is Spotify for podcasters. If you're looking for a more premium subscription straight away, you're looking for all those features, diving into your analytics and diving into monetization opportunities, for example, a couple different options. There's Buzzsprout, and Libsyn is also a great one, as you know.
Yes, that's the one we use. All right, little simple question. How can we measure the success of our podcast?
First of all, you can absolutely dive into the metrics of your podcast. Going into your podcast hosting platform, you can be looking at this with your podcast producer and really figuring out how many downloads or plays per episode are you getting. You also want to look at your demographics. So you want to be looking at where are your listeners located? How old are they? These things are going to be able to help you speak better to your listeners and to figure out what you need to be talking about. And then in addition to that, there actually is a way to make sure that you're tracking things that are happening directly from your podcast. And that's with UTM links. Making sure that every time that you include a link in your show notes, that you're adding that UTM link. You're taking them to your website, but what we're seeing on the back end in the analytics is we're seeing, oh, that person clicked on the website through the podcast. And last but not least, the one piece is that you're never going to be able to get with ROI and really understand from an ROI perspective is the awareness piece. Very difficult to be able to see how much awareness you're really stirring about your brand, how many stories are being shared to the next potential client. All of this is happening on the back end, and it's harder to see that.
There's a little golden nugget for everybody. UTM links in your show notes. Really great tip. Really fascinating discussion around podcasting. I love the fact that you just said then that the ROI is sometimes difficult because it's of awareness. And that takes me right back to the beginning of the interview when you talked about the Virgin Active podcast where members were walking in and talking about the show. Now, you don't get an ROI on that. You're not going to get a new member, but that member has listened to that show and then come to the gym. So perhaps you're actually improving the retention or the attrition of that member through that podcast. And that's very difficult to link or justify as an ROI. So, and if you're a industry supplier who's listening to today's show, I hope you sure as hell get it and you contact me about being a sponsor. But that's a whole nother story. We can talk about that later, monetizing podcasts. Jamie, last question. In version 3.0 of the Fitness Business Podcast, we're changing it up with our last question for all of our guests. It's really simple. Somebody's listened to the show today. I want you to give them a 90-day challenge. What is your 90-day challenge to the Fitness Business Podcast community to turn podcasting into a marketing funnel for their business?
Yes, I love that question. First 30 days, what we're going to do is we're just going to be spending that time learning. Is a podcast for me and my business? I do offer a free 20-minute call through my website. I'm sure we can link that in the show notes, which essentially will allow you and I to have a 20-minute strategy call. We can go through and talk about your current resources. What does your staff look like? What is your budget? How many really hours would you have to dedicate to a podcast? And we can figure out if a podcast is viable as a marketing effort for you and your team. And then at the 60-day mark, if we've decided, yes, this is happening, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can produce a podcast on your own. It's absolutely been done. Or you can hire a podcast producer to do that. And that could be someone like me that can help you through every single step of the process in order to get that launched. In the last phase of this, we're talking about implementing it. We're going to be recording the trailer for you. We're going to be creating that artwork thumbnail. We're going to start promoting the podcast, all of these things in order to get you to that 90-day launch. And you absolutely could have your podcast launched in less than 90 days. And we could even talk about getting you on the charts at that point.
Love it. Jamie, thank you so much for sharing all of your information today, your education and your knowledge. We will put all Jamie's details in our show notes. Jamie, thank you. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and thank you for helping produce a version 3.0 of the Fitness Business Podcast.
Thank you so much. It's been really wonderful to be here.
Welcome to our 3-minute sponsors pitch on the Fitness Business Podcast. We spotlight a Rex Roundtable trusted supplier who provides innovative solutions to help you enhance your facility, boost member engagement, and increase profitability. Stay tuned to discover their suggested actions to elevate your fitness business to the next level.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Avaseo, and I'm the head of sales at MXM, or Member Experience Metrics. We are proud supporters of the Fitness Business Podcast and are honored to have a few minutes of your time. We strongly believe in everything the podcast has to offer and are fully committed to supporting it, as well as all of you and your organizations. A little bit about MXM. We drive growth by helping organizations harness the power of what we call operational intelligence. Our integrated software transforms member experience feedback into true actionable insights, enabling you to make smarter, data-driven decisions that enhance performance and customer satisfaction. And we all know that the higher your member experience, the more love and loyalty you create, the longer your members will stay and pay, and ultimately that translates into more money for you and your operations to continue to grow and improve. In short, we turn your member experience vision into actionable tactics and measurable insights and strategies for successful execution. Our worldwide partners in the industry range from those with individual studio operations all the way up to organizations with 100+ locations. Now, my personal role in all of this is about connecting our innovative solutions with folks like you that are ready to elevate their operations and achieve measurable results. And you can find my contact details either in the show notes or thefitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Now, I've talked about operational intelligence and data, and I'm here to just quickly touch on what we consider the core metrics that you should already be measuring. And if you're not, no worries. Don't hesitate to reach out. But you should already be collecting your likelihood to recommend, which is your net promoter score, your likelihood to continue, your overall staff friendliness, your overall cleanliness, your equipment condition, and your fitness results. Now, we'd argue that there's a new core metric that's evolving, and that's access to the equipment I want to use. And that's another one that we're seeing a direct correlation to likelihood to recommend, your NPS score, and likelihood to continue. If you've already got these key metrics on a consistent basis throughout the entire journey of your member experience, great. If not, you need to be able to start looking at capturing those, because then you'll be able to identify opportunities that lead to those quick wins, opportunities that leads to process and procedural wins, and also opportunities that can lead to your bigger CapEx decisions and ultimate wins. And my challenge to each and every one of you is to look at your member experience vision or statement or your mission statement and see if you can pinpoint where these metrics are being measured. If you don't have a member experience vision, don't worry about it. Set up a quick chat with us and we can help codify one and help you get the strategies and tactics to execute that. If you already do have one and you could use a little bit of help, maybe taking your member experience feedback to that next level, don't hesitate to reach out as well, because friends of the Fitness Business Podcast will earn a healthy discount should we choose to partner together. A quick call or a chat can really help take you into the next chapter of your organization's future, because I cannot stress enough that there is money in your member experience. Thank you all once again for your time. If you'd like to get in touch or learn more about MXM or myself, you can find my contact details in the show notes again or at thefitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Thanks and have a great day.
Trusted suppliers this episode from Rex Roundtables are Raw Partners, offering data-driven marketing strategies to enhance customer relationships. Precor, designing premium fitness equipment, and Performance Foods, providing turnkey smoothie bar solutions for gyms in the United States. You can see all of their details at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com.
At Rex Roundtables, we're proud to have over 350 exceptional leaders and business professionals as members from all over the world. From owners to CEOs to general managers and department heads, each one will bring a wealth of experience and insight to their Rex Roundtable. For this episode, we've handpicked one of our members to share a 3-minute golden nugget, which is a proven strategy that's driving success in their business. This is real-world advice from someone in the trenches, just like you. If you're interested in learning more about Rex Roundtables and how it can benefit your business and leadership, reach out to me, Eddie at rexroundtables.com, or find my contact details at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com.
Hi, my name's Troy Morgan. I'm CEO of Willows Health Group, and I'm super excited to be here with you today. In my day-to-day business world, I am part of a traditional health and fitness center with an allied health component, but I also consult into large corporate organizations developing technology solutions for both their employees and leaders. I'm going to look at both of those worlds today to look at how technology influences our fitness business. Now, rather than list off a whole heap of tools which you can use within your own business with regards to technology, I'm going to share with you a framework that I look at within my business, looking at existing technology solutions and how you'd implement new technology. We look at the pillars of our business connection to start with. And within my fitness business, we look at our members, we look at our staff, and we look at the business. And the ultimate question when looking at existing technology solutions or new technology solutions for your member is what you're implementing enhancing their journey? Is it creating personalized experience? And is it easily accessible for your member? Are you asking them to download a multitude of apps? Or are you creating one ecosystem, an omni-channel experience that actually enhances and personalizes everything that member does within your facility and outside the facility? For your staff, are you streamlining processes? Are you creating systems where email, document collection, Teams meetings, everything that you are doing is stored in one area to allow you to enhance your ability to harness AI into the future for your business? The bottom line is any systems we're choosing or technology that we're looking to implement are all your systems talking to each other? Are you creating usable data lakes that allow you to make strategic decisions about your business? Or are you creating siloed solutions with no interconnection, which actually makes the life of your member and your staff members harder? Implementing new technology, I align to a similar process with grief. To start with, there'll be denial. Yourself, your staff members may resist why the change is necessary with regards to new technology. Then it may lead to anger. Frustration sets in as that learning curve starts to take effect. And then you start to bargain. Do I really need this change? Your members will start to bargain and try to hold on to the old systems. And then maybe depression starts to set in. The challenges can feel overwhelming with regards to technology, but making sure you have a plan, making sure you understand why you're implementing the technology system and allow that message to go both to your staff and your members will eventually lead to acceptance. And you'll start to become clear how you can fully integrate the solution. Recognizing these stages helps the emotional responses that both yourself, your staff, and members will feel with technology. My challenge today is for you to really take a look at the current technology solutions that you are implementing in your business, looking at what future technology solutions you may be looking to implement, and do they connect to the core why of why you're in business? If you'd like to connect with me, contact details will be in the Fitness Business Podcast notes. And the best way to connect with me is through my LinkedIn. And my name, once again, is Troy Morgan. Thank you.
Troy's a member of my Australian Club Owners Rex, and everyone loves him as every meeting has a new app or a new piece of tech that just makes life easier for everyone as owners. Thanks, Troy, for being a Rex member. Thanks for sharing so much within your Rex, and thanks for coming on the show today. Let's keep the conversation going. Join our thriving LinkedIn community where Troy will be to answer any follow-up questions that you may have. Head over to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com and click on the link to join the LinkedIn community. Well, that's episode 3, almost in the bag, and I hope you're coping okay with my bougie Aussie accent and you can understand some of the words I may be using. If not, feel free to drop me an email and I'll translate them for you. Thanks to Jamie from Brave Moon Podcasts for sharing how you can add a podcast to your marketing arsenal. Thanks to Paul Bedford, the retention guru, Jason from MX Metrics, and Troy, our member from Rex Roundtables, for all dropping by today. You'll find all of their details in the show notes on our website. Now, you've got some actionable steps to enhance your leadership, to drive innovation, and boost your profits. I'm eager to hear about your wins. In fact, all of the industry is. So please share your wins in our LinkedIn community. Now, our next episode, I'm going to be chatting with Dr. Ted Vicky. Ted has just released an awesome new book called The Fitness Professional's Guide to ChatGPT. Can you guess the topic? You got it, ChatGPT and the fitness professional. Plus, Ted has an exclusive giveaway to Fitness Business Podcast listeners, so you better come back in 2 weeks. You don't want to miss out on this free giveaway. Please head to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com to subscribe to our exclusive episode notes. We seriously have the best episode notes in the podcast game because they take me so bloody long to do them. They're exclusive, so go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/subscribe. And you know our sign off. So why not join me? What we leave behind is not in stone monuments, but is woven into the lives of others. Catch you in 2 weeks for a ripper session on ChatGPT and AI.